So I didn't know this way back when, but my first job out of university was as a copywriter in an advertising agency. And I would sit down in front of my typewriter, right? I'm aging myself, my typewriter, and I would type out words for ads. And I'd look at the words and I was so embarrassed because it was just crap. It was cliches. I wanted to get to the essence, company or the brand or the product or the service. And all I was doing was just like spewing out typical advertising cliches, and I hated it. And I went
I
to
hate it too.
an art director and I said to him, "Can you make me a sign that says, 'Is that true?'" And I taped it to the wall behind my typewriter so that as I'm typing words, I could constantly be asking myself, "Is that true? Is that true?" And I don't mean factually correct. I mean true to whatever the product or service is. And sadly, the answer was always no. And so my career as a copywriter did not last that long. But that really is that true question became like just a central thing in my life.
Welcome to your Wordless Podcast, the space where we redefine success, self-worth, and transformation. I am Nick Nieras, the soul-centered architect of transformation, helping you unlock your highest potential and build a legacy beyond limits. Now, whether it is self-mastery, career breakthroughs, or wealth creation, this is where change begins. Now let's dive in. Are you stuck in a job that you don't love, feeling like you're meant for more? It is not in your head, it is in your soul. I am Nick Nieras and I help high achievers like you break free from burnout, rewire self-doubt, and build a life aligned with purpose through coaching, hypnotherapy, and soul activation. Because let's face it, real wealth isn't just about money, it is about a aligned and happy heart, mind, and soul. Now, remember, you are worthy and you are enough. Let's transform your life together. Visit www.thenicknieras.holisticlifestyle.com to begin.
Thank you very much.
All right. First up, right off the bat, can you share with us what was it like growing up as an Ian Shaman?
I had a pretty not affluent, but middle class, cushy. I'm in Toronto in Canada. Grew up in a lovely neighborhood in downtown Toronto and, with the classic sort of middle class husband and wife and three kids. I went to university, and then I came home and I started my career. I had five different careers. Met my wife, had a son. He's now 28 and a journalist covering politics. So I'm quite proud of him.
Uh, yeah, that's something. So, okay, Ian, I am obviously going to follow up with a question. What is your backstory then? Can you please share with us why purpose?
So I didn't know this way back when, but my first job out of university was as a copywriter in an advertising agency. And I would sit down in front of my typewriter, right? I'm aging myself, my typewriter, and I would type out words for ads. And I'd look at the words and I was so embarrassed because it was just crap. It was cliches. I wanted to get to the essence of the company or the brand or the product or the service. And all I was doing was just like spewing out typical advertising cliches. And I hated it. And I went
I
to
hate it too.
an art director and
Mm-hmm.
I said to him, "Can you make me a sign that says, 'Is that true?'" And I taped it to the wall behind my typewriter so that as I'm typing words, I could constantly be asking myself, "Is that true? Is that true?" And I don't mean factually correct. I mean
Mm-hmm.
true to whatever the product or service is. And sadly, the answer was always no. And so my career as a copywriter did not last that long. But that really is that true question became like
Oh,
just
well.
a central thing in my life. And so in every other career I had, I played either the role or among my roles was the is that true role? In other words, how do we get to the root value of what this is about that we're doing? And then um, about 20 years ago with a partner, I started a business that ended up in that business, which is digging deep, deep, deep to understand the true essence of a company. In other words, what is it at that company's root, at its essence, at its heart that makes it uniquely remarkable? What are the value propositions for its products or services? What makes this company, right? Why has Apple been such a powerful performer for over 50 years? Here's another one. IBM. What was IBM doing after the Second World War, like in the 40s and 50s? They were selling the most sophisticated business technology to the largest companies in the world. Here we are 80 years later, and what's IBM doing? They're still selling the most sophisticated business technology in the world to the largest companies in the world. So for 80 years, they have stayed rock solid on that path. Now, they've had generations of CEOs, generations of executive teams who said, we should take this company here, we should take that company there. But as it turns out, they always did it within guardrails that kept IBM on, we sell the most sophisticated business technology to the biggest companies in the world. And for me, when I see that, I say, how did they do that? They don't have an expression of who they are somewhere in their corporate documentation that keeps them on that path. And yet they stay on that path. And so that became my quest with this business blueprint that I started 20 years ago, was to be able to identify that one thing that makes that company uniquely remarkable. Now, if you read Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, or you saw his TED Talk. By the way, if you didn't see his TED Talk, I suggest you watch that right now, or, after our podcast, obviously. If you watch the TED Talk, you don't need to read the book. It's all in the TED. But your why and what makes you uniquely remarkable in 7 words or less, those are the same things. Simon Sinek and I play in the same sandbox. So what we did is we developed this methodology, 3 simple parts. The first one is to define what makes you uniquely remarkable, and our standard for that is to do it in 7 words or less. And if you think that's not many words to capture what makes you your magic, it's actually 2 or 3 or 4 words usually. So define what makes you uniquely remarkable in 7 words or less. And once you know what that is, you use that as a strategic driver for your business. So that short expression guides everything you do, all the operations and day-to-day machinations of the company, and everything you say, all of your branding, marketing, sales, and all that sort of thing. And so that simple process became the blueprint process. And that is a service that I offer to organizations to give them clarity about their future. So that was the first part. The second part and the third part are much shorter. So don't worry, I'm not going to go on forever here. The second part is, before COVID, I ran into this Pablo Picasso quote. So the artist, right? And he said, the meaning of life is to find your gift and your purpose is to share it with the world. And I went, oh, that's interesting. And so, as is my want, I shortened that to, your purpose is to find your gift and share it with the world. Now, what I have been doing for the last 20 years is defining the one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable at your essence. That's your gift, right? So in Picasso's sentence, purpose is to find your gift and share it with the world. Well, purpose is to discover the one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable, your gift, and share it with the world. So I completely rebranded what I was doing with corporations around purpose. Discover your purpose in 7 words or less and have it guide everything you do and say. But I realized I could also adapt it to individuals. so that you can define your purpose in 7 words or less and have it guide your life. So you now have a strategic guide for your life. And I made a course out of that called the My Blueprint for Purpose course. And it's offered by my company, Purpose U. So I've got Blueprint for organizations, and I have Purpose U for individuals. So Purpose U, Purpose University, right, offers the My Blueprint for Purpose course, and you can take the course. It takes about 6 hours to define your purpose in 7 words or less, design your purpose story so you know what it is in depth and you can communicate that to the world charismatically. And that's your purpose pitch. And then that's your blueprint, right? So you now have a purpose in life, have a purpose that's defined in 7 words or less. And I love the idea that now anybody in the world can do that because I know the value of it in my own life. I know the value of it in clients' lives who have either taken the course or done it one-on-one with me. And I'm excited, to share that with people and to have them have the discoveries that I and others have had, the epiphanies about their lives that I and others have had just because you discover the one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable at your essence, and you can express it in 7 words or less. Clear, concise, and compelling. So I'll keep my answers shorter in the future, but that's my
No, no, I like to bring it back to basics, obviously, and I like to dive deep into the origin of a person's story, a person's journey. So, what was it like for you, Ian, when you weren't sure of your purpose just yet?
well, when you don't know what your purpose is, I want to tell you something about purpose that's really, really important. And it takes purpose out of the realm of woo woo. Oh, purpose, touchy
Yeah.
feely, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, you're supposed to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
on that path, or else
yeah, yeah, yeah.
your word amount to nothing here
Enough
on
already.
earth.
Enough of woo woo. Is a decision making tool. It's not a very romantic way to describe it, but this is its value, right? So in life, when you're faced with a number of decisions, the question you normally ask is, which of these options is best for me? And you try and evaluate them all, the pros and the cons, and you try to make a choice. But you have no parameters on that thinking. You have no guidance. You have no direction other than it's got to fit me. But who's me? When you know your purpose, then what you do, rather than saying, which of my options is best for me, you say, which of my options most closely aligns with my purpose? And when you do that, you now have guidance. Maybe what I should do is I should tell you what my purpose is, and I can sort of make this more tangible. My purpose, 4 words, transforming confusion into clarity. That's my special talent. I have a methodology of breaking complex issues down into much simpler components. And in that deconstructing of the complex issue, at some point we get to a level where the simplicity is just so obvious that the answer jumps out and it's self evident. You just say, right, of course.
Duh.
Yes, yes. And so if I have a situation in front of me. Like, actually, you know what? Let me give you a quick story about one of my clients because hers is a wonderful real life example of how purpose is a tangible, practical decision making tool. So I'm having drinks with her after work one day. She's a CEO of a company. And she said, I've been there 5 years and the company's running itself and I'm bored. And I said, well, sounds like you're ready for your next gig. And she says, I am, but the idea scares me to death. And I'm like, what? So this is a woman who got her MBA before she was 20 years old. This
What?
was her third gig as a CEO. So, this is not her first rodeo. And she faces all the same anxieties and fears as anybody would face. when they're looking for a new job, whether you've been fired, whether you've been laid off, or whether you're making that change by choice. All sorts of unanswered questions come up. Where am I going to go? Is there a place for me? Will they accept me? Are my skills still relevant? Blah, blah, blah. And all of these questions, because they are unanswered, create anxiety and even fear. And that's what she was experiencing. She was experiencing anxiety and fear because she was contemplating switching careers, which I thought was ridiculous, right? Because she's so accomplished. So I said, well, I tell you what, why don't we figure out what your purpose is and then see what that tells us? And she said, okay. So, I just let her talk. And the core of what she was talking about was loving to get into a stinking mess and fix that. She basically said to me, unless the company is on the verge of bankruptcy, my brain doesn't get engaged. I need that level of disaster to fully engage all of
Thrives.
my talents. And I said, okay, well, here's the image that you're conjuring up, right? It's that you got a whole bunch of soldiers and they've just fought in a bunch of battles and they're tired and they're hungry and they're dirty and they're injured. And now they've recognized that they have come to a minefield. And it's like, oh my God, one more thing trying to kill me. And a new leader comes to them. And this new leader says, don't worry. I have gotten through a million minefields before. I am an expert in finding safe paths through minefields. Just follow me and I will lead you safely through the minefield. And she said, that's me. That's me. That's who I want to be. That's who I am. And leading safely through the minefield became her purpose.
Mm.
Yeah. And so now she's out and a headhunter phones her, a recruiter phones her and says, I have a fabulous opportunity for you. This is a company that is really successful. It's on a growth curve and it needs a real talent to keep it on that upward growth path. Now,
Mm.
99 out of 100 CEO candidates would look at that and say, sign me up.
That, yes. What's the
Her,
package like?
yeah, yeah, exactly. She said, nah, doesn't interest me. And the guy's like, what are you talking about? She said, give me a tire fire. And he said, well, I have this, stinking pile of rubbish over here, but I'm embarrassed to show it to you. And she said, no, 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 that's what I want to see. Show me that company so that I can, put my head down and fix this mess. So that's how she used her purpose as a decision making tool to employment options for the future, not which one is best for me, because she might have made the mistake of looking at the wonderful glitzy one and saying, well, obviously that. But because she knows her purpose is leading safely through the minefield, that purpose or that opportunity did not fit her purpose, but the steaming pile of garbage did, right? So before purpose, me before purpose, you before purpose, anyone before purpose, the question you ask is what option is best for me? And there's no guidance in there. There's nothing to help you in making that decision. But when you say, which of these options is best aligned with my purpose, leading safely through the minefield, transforming confusion into clarity, causing wow, which was my business partners, then you now have guidance for how to make that decision. And it's which of these options is most aligned with my purpose. And that is the ultimate value of purpose. And when you are making decisions about your future that you just know are right for you, consistently right for you, that elevates your confidence. You become a much more confident person.
Have you ever had instances where you disregard your purpose and went with option A? Just like
Yes.
the
Yeah.
what happened?
You can do
Share
that.
with us.
There's nothing stopping you from doing that.
Mm.
But go back to, my CEO friend who's out looking
Mm-hmm.
for a new gig. So she's facing these two options. She knows her purpose is transforming confusion into clarity. sorry, she knows her purpose is leading safely through the minefield. She can still pick that option. That is the company on a growth curve that needs a talented individual to keep it on that growth curve. She can still make that decision, but she's making it with awareness that it's not aligned with her purpose and there may be perils associated with that. But she is okay with either overlooking or experiencing those perils because there's something else in that mix that's really appealing to her. But the key difference, this is a great question, by the way. The key difference is that she's making that decision out of awareness, not out of ignorance.
Hi, I'm Nick Nieras, your host of the Your Worthless podcast. Now, if these real raw stories hit home, don't wait. Please follow, like, and subscribe my Spotify and YouTube. For bite-sized inspirational reels, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Don't wait. Your transformation starts today. Thank you, and bye for now.
I love that. I love that because I, at least for me, when I ignore something that I have known to be a misalignment towards against what I'm supposed to do, I will definitely fall flat on my face first and then learn my lesson and okay, I hear you. I hear you. I'm gonna go back to the path that I'm supposed to be on.
Can I tell you why it is that
Mm-hmm.
decisions that are aligned with your purpose fit so comfortably? Like they feel right. They're not just logical in your head, they just feel right. And that is because the components of your purpose, the atoms that make up the molecule that is your purpose, are your beliefs, your wants, and your talents. So your beliefs, all of your sort of belief structure and all of your, um, your guiding principles and your values and all of that. Your wants, everything that you desire in your life, right? And then your talents, and your talents can be things you've been born with, or they can be talents that you've acquired. Like a great singing voice is something you're born with. Playing guitar is a talent that you've acquired. So your beliefs, wants, and talents are the components of your purpose. And your unique combination of beliefs, wants, and talents is what makes you you. And when you say, this decision is aligned with my purpose, you're actually saying something deeper. You're saying this decision, this option is aligned with my beliefs, my wants, and my talents. And because it's aligned with those things that are the core of you, they fit the core of you, and you react emotionally, which is, yeah, that's just right. I know this is the right decision. It just feels right for me. It logically fits as well, but it feels right. And those decisions are the best decisions when you just say, yeah, yeah, that just feels right.
That's like a warm hug for me. Because starting out a business, because I'm now at its infancy, right? I got laid off last year. And so I'm
Mm.
pushed full force to podcasting. It's because I love connecting with people and when you said talent, I think I have a talent in that, not to, toot my own horns here, but it's just I just have a flair with yeah, getting to know people across the country. None in my friend group, I think that have I would say nobody does. If they have a podcast, they'll probably be around, speaking in the community, but not me. So that's that. That's one thing that I leaned on when I asked myself after the layoff, do you want to go back to corporate, Nick, or do you want to give it, you want to help people? Because was I went through my divorce in 2019, and so that started the whole process of me rediscovering myself and learning different parts of myself, like finding what is my true purpose, right? And so I went and got myself certified with a couple of certifications. I was an accountant before, but right now, hypnotherapist and a lifestyle coach. And so But throughout that process, I've had to really unlearn the beliefs or the notion, the prejudgments that people might have upon my choosing of this, especially telling it to my dad.
Mhm.
Not that I do, how do I say this? Even as much as you say that you don't care what people think, but because you've built yourself to a certain stature in the society, at least, when you are pivoting, you cannot help but to think, oh, what would they think of me? But
Mhm.
deep down, it is what you need to do. And why is Nick choosing to do something that is so opposite to what she used to do and give up her stable, good paying job, good paycheck, and, all those luxury things that she used to have? So, that is my
Can I can
story,
I
Ian.
yeah, can I just tell you how if you knew your purpose, it could have influenced that process, right? So you got laid off. So you know that we call that a trigger
It's
event.
coming. I knew that it was coming either way, but I was just, just pretending that it was not gonna come, and I need to have it taken away from me, then I'll move because
Right, right,
we
right.
all love safety, right?
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah,
all love
for
that
sure, for
security.
sure, and that's probably why your father was, so concerned about you, right? He just wants his little girl to be safe. So, you got laid off. We
Mm-hmm.
call career change, either firing laid off or by choice, a trigger event, right? A trigger event is something significant that happens in your life that causes you to rethink. And the first stage of rethinking is usually a whole bunch of unanswered questions. So you've been laid off. I'm sure, questions like, what am I going to do next? Where can I get a job? Is there a job out there for me? Will I fit in? All of these unanswered questions, right? So that's trigger events are like the first in a series of four dominoes. So the first is that the trigger event happens. The second domino is it creates all sorts of questions that you can't answer, that you don't have answers for at the moment. The third thing is that all those unanswered questions create uncertainty. And the fourth domino is that when you feel uncertainty, you feel anxiety, or when you experience uncertainty, you feel anxiety and even fear in the extreme, right? So, trigger event, unanswered questions creates uncertainty, and that uncertainty causes anxiety and even fear. So, you went through all of that. Um, and then you figured out on your own what it was that you wanted to do next. Now, if your purpose was transforming confusion into clarity, like mine is, then
Similar.
rather than looking out over 360 degrees and saying, what am I going to do next? You now have this narrow focus. Whatever I do next has to align with transforming confusion into clarity. And then so there's two impacts to that. There's the impact on you, and then there's the impact on others. So when you make the decisions that you make about your future that are aligned with transforming confusion into clarity, you know those are the right decisions. So you have a level of confidence that is higher than if you had just made those decisions without knowing your purpose. But then when your father says, just go and, like my mother would have said, just go and get a job and work for a company and have a steady paycheck. Well, you could have said to your father, my purpose in life is transforming confusion into clarity. And what I've chosen to do is completely aligned with my purpose, my passion. And so this is what I'm going to pursue. He may still want you to get a job for the security,
He
but
stopped
he's
pestering.
he's also going to recognize that his little girl has thought this through and that she's taken a risk, but she's thought it through, and this is what she really wants to do. So I'd still rather you have a job, but I'll support you in this, right?
He doesn't say that out loud, but yes, because I even moved away from Kuala Lumpur back to East Coast, right? Back with them because I need to build a business. I need to conserve the finances. And so the first few months he was pestering me, but right now he
Well,
he
I'm
would drop
probably
some
older. Yeah, I'm probably older than your father, so I know exactly how he feels.
Exactly. I mean, and in this economy,
Yeah.
right? But I've never felt better. I've had some significant beneficial changes happen to me in terms of my health wise. I've been so much better than before. And I learned how to really pace myself right now with all this because I advocate for building a lifestyle that supports you in your purpose. And I have to walk the talk, and I had to do a lot of work to to get rid of all this gunk inside of me. Not to say that it's done. Still, I'm still working on through
It's a
some
never
stuff
ending
as well.
process.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Ian, wow, awesome. Yes, 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 please.
I was going to say something about, here's what I wanted to say. The
Mm-hmm.
fact that what you're doing now, the decisions that you made in your pivot, both for what you're doing in your career, but also what you're doing in your personal life, like taking better care of yourself and all that sort of thing. Although you don't know what your purpose is, those decisions are all aligned with your purpose. And the reason that I know, like, you don't, if you take my course at Purpose U to uncover your purpose and define it in 7 words or less, we're not creating something there. We're identifying what is already there. We're just putting words to it and putting very few words, 7 words or less. But it's already there. Just like IBM can't tell you what it is that makes it uniquely remarkable. But whatever that is has kept it on the same path for 80 years, has kept Apple. Actually, I know Apple's because Simon Sinek identified it in his TED Talk, changing the game. Apple has invented nothing. Nothing has it ever invented. But every product that it has, it took somebody else's idea and made it 10 times better, changing the game. What an exciting purpose that is, right? That's why they've got people lined up outside the door still to this day to work
This
there,
day.
changing the game. So you have a purpose already. You just don't know what it is. And the decisions, because they feel right for you, means that you actually made those decisions in alignment with your purpose,
Well,
with your beliefs,
when
wants, and talents.
beliefs, wants, and talent. When you were saying about the 7 words, I was already thinking about this headline I have on LinkedIn. People trust me to help them get unstuck. So that's how many?
Yes.
8.
Well, okay.
But
So
I want to
here's the
ask
thing.
you, why did you say 7? Yes, yes, please.
Okay. Why 7? Okay. So it was pointed out to us at some point before we had, crystallized this methodology that in the work we do with clients, it always ended up coming down to some pithy line and then building around. And we looked at that and we said, well, maybe we should make that fixed. And then we looked at all the pithy lines, and the longest one was 7 words. So we said, okay, 7 words or less. And I know grammatically it's supposed to be 7 words or fewer, but that sounds ridiculous. So we settled on 7 words or less. But here's the thing. It sort of boxes us in rightfully. When you have to go through the rigor of figuring out and go through the depth of figuring out what makes you uniquely remarkable at your essence, and you squeeze out all these meaningless concepts and words because you've got so little real estate, 7 words or less, every word has to count. Now, 2 characteristics of a good purpose statement is one is that it's so logical that it's self-evident, right? So do I have to explain to you what transforming confusion into clarity is? You get that. So logical that it's self-evident. And then the other is it resonates on a deep emotional level. If I had come to you right after you got laid off and said, hi there, I'm all about transforming confusion into clarity, you would have said, oh my God, that's what I need right now. Because in that moment, you have so many unanswered questions causing uncertainty and anxiety that you would have loved for me to transform that confusion into clarity. Not so much now because you're humming along, right? But another characteristic of a purpose statement is that it never begins with I, me, or we, or anything like that. You don't own it, right? Transforming confusion into clarity expressed like that, I don't own that. And I can't do that by myself. So if you came to me a couple of days after you got laid off and said, Ian, I want you to transform confusion into clarity, I would have said, well, Nick, not to be, pedantic, but it's we that transform confusion into clarity because I can't do it without you. The transforming confusion into clarity is a big tent that anybody can come into, anybody feels welcome in when they need that. But if I say I transform confusion into clarity, all of a sudden I've closed that tent down and only I fit in that tent, right? We don't want that. So same with my CEO friend, leading safely through the minefield. She can't do that alone, but that's a purpose that she has committed her life to. And she says, when she joins a new company that's in distress, she says, join me in this tent and we will make it happen together. So if I was working with you one-on-one to come up with your purpose, I would say, oh, that's a great starting point. Let's talk about that. And then a question that I ask all the time is, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? Because we hear people say things and they sound kind of simple, but they're not. And it's not until you say, what does that mean to you? That my understanding of what you said, I found out is, oh, that's not what she meant at all. She meant something completely different. And what she said expresses that, but I took a completely different meaning. So I'm constantly saying, what does that mean to you? What does that mean? What does that mean? And that's how, I deconstruct a complex issue into simpler elements so that at some point the answer pops out and is self-evident. And that's what I do in the course, right? The structure of the course is to get you to identify 2 accomplishments in your life that make you really proud. I was really proud that I participated in this. And it could have been only you participating in it, or you could have been a cast of thousands. But what it has to be an accomplishment that you're really proud of your role. And so I get you to pick one from business and one from your career and one from your personal life. And I lead you through a process, an AI empowered process where we deconstruct those accomplishments. And at the end of 7 steps, you discover something new about yourself. Well, you're discovering new stuff all the way along, but this is really the epiphany, because at the end of step 7, you have your list of beliefs, wants, and talents. The things that are the building blocks, right? The personality and emotional building blocks of your personality, of your life. So now you know what your beliefs, wants, and talents are. And then the next step is for you to work with Wordsmith, which is our AI assistant. So Wordsmith is sitting beside you, holding your hand through this process. And you and Wordsmith then work with those beliefs, wants, and talents to reveal what it is that makes you uniquely remarkable in 7 words or less. And then once you have that short phrase and you're sitting there saying, oh my God, that's me. Then we build the story, what we call the purpose pitch. It's the story of your purpose. And just like your purpose is articulated in 7 words or less, the entire story of your purpose is articulated in 3 sentences. Clear, concise, and compelling. No wasted words. I think Hendrix said that about John Lennon. No wasted words. No wasted notes. No wasted notes. No wasted words. No wasted nothing. You say what your purpose pitch is, and people say, I want me some of that. And then the last step is just to complete your blueprint, have a finished blueprint that now becomes the guide for your life. And that's what we do in the course. And I have videos where I explain to you in great detail both the theory and the practicality. The videos guide you through working in the workbook with Wordsmith, the AI assistant. So I'm on one side and video is holding your hand, and Wordsmith is on the other side of you holding your hand as you work in the work. And so you have this assisted process. And, if you want to rush, you can do it and see, or not rush, but if you want to do it in one sitting, you can do it in like 6 hours. It's not much time. 3 nights of 2 hours each of
Tuesday.
learning about yourself,
Exactly.
learning the most basic thing about yourself. Who am I?
You got me thinking about a lot of things there. And it has been a very, very insightful interview. And so I'll be doing some tweaking, and this is why I love what I do. Every guest that comes onto my show, I learn something from them, and I apply it to my life, my business, and my, well, what do you know, purpose. So thank you, Ian.
It was my pleasure. It was my pleasure, Nick. Thank you very much.
Okay, a few more questions. How does purpose make you more interesting? You're more confident. What else? You're more lively. You're more fun.
Yeah, well, so when you can communicate who you are in a clear, concise, and compelling way, what you're doing is you are advertising your talent to the world, right? So when you put it out there, who you are, that returns to you. And I'm not talking about what's it called? The law of
Attraction.
attraction. I'm not talking about the law. I'm not talking about anything woo-woo. I'm talking about marketing. I'm talking about advertising. When I say to somebody or to a group of people, my purpose is transforming confusion into clarity, I'm advertising what my value is to them. And they tuck that away and they say, I'm going to give this guy a call when I need that. Or they'll be needing it in the moment and they'll say, I need what you got. And so the thing is, my purpose wouldn't be transforming confusion into clarity unless I got incredibly inspired doing that. So if I'm putting out to the world, I'm about transforming confusion into clarity, and the world is saying to me, I could use some of that, then I have more interesting stuff coming my way. The stuff that's coming my way is the stuff that inspires me. And that makes my life more interesting because the stuff
gonna be
that you
doing some
really
work.
want to do, a higher volume of it comes your way because you are a much better advertiser of what your talent is.
Thank you for that, Ian. All right, we are going to pivot to a self-worth question. I guess right now, having done this for 2 decades, right? Or maybe more, I'm not sure. How do you define your self-worth? Was it constant for you? Have you always known that your self-worth is this, or did it fluctuate? Or did it evolve?
It definitely evolved and it definitely fluctuated and it still fluctuates. I'm human. I get down, I get up, you know, I, I ride the roller coaster of the world just like everybody else. And, and especially now, because we're kind of in tumultuous times. So the roller coaster is a little hairier.
Yes.
But the thing is, and this is sort of a corollary to benefit number one, which is elevated confidence. Um, benefit number two, of course, is better decision making that's more aligned with who you are. It's keeping balance, right? So you can never, ever, ever take away from me what makes me uniquely remarkable. I will always have that superpower until the day I die. So although I am experiencing, the roller coaster of living the life of a human being like everybody else is, I have this thing that gives me guidance, that gives me that allows me to know that have something that makes me uniquely remarkable, and you can never take that away from me.
So I guess that is your definition of self-worth right now. You can never take what is uniquely mine and innately mine since birth.
That's right. The root of my self-worth is that my superpower is transforming confusion into clarity. And you can never take that away from me. Toothpaste is out of the tube, right? Can't put it back in. And that's what I would say to everybody, right? So I have this belief that there's 8 million people walking around this planet. And I have this belief
8
that
billion, you
over
mean?
billion, yeah, billion
Okay, fine.
with
The
a B.
babies, we're not gonna count. Well, we can't count the babies yet, but okay, around there,
Yeah.
maybe.
So there's 8 billion people on this planet. And I have this belief that over half of them are walking around saying, there is nothing special about me. And therefore, I can't do anything special and I don't deserve anything special. And I'm here to tell you that as long as, you know, there is a unique set of beliefs, wants, and talents, and as long as there is never anybody in the world who is exactly the same as you, that means you have something uniquely remarkable.
And you are one of one. It's never one in a
You
million.
are one
You
of
are
one.
one of one.
And all you've got to do to stop walking around and saying there's nothing special about me and therefore I don't deserve anything special and can't do anything special is figure out what your purpose is,
And that is where they
because
should go
that's
and
what
sign up.
makes you special.
Yes, and that is where they need to go and sign up for Purpose You.
Exactly. So
Okay.
it's the, and I know that's self-serving for me to say, and the way you do that is to take my course. But here's the thing,
No,
you
but
know,
seriously, I
the,
mean, look, I mean, the work is actually doing understanding yourself. I think the key thing in life is the journey within, instead of
mhm,
trying to journey outwards and trying to get validation from your achievements, your accolades, right? Because the answer is deep within you. All you need to do is be aware and be willing to go inwards.
mhm,
That's the
mhm.
key. That's the true wisdom.
But when you go inwards, right, there is an old cliche that you can't do therapy on yourself.
That's true.
And so 99% of the people in the world have no clue what their purpose is, but they could go out and read books, and many have, and they can go to retreats and stuff like that, and many have, and they still can't tell you what their purpose is. They might feel better having read that and gone to the retreats, but they can't tell you what their purpose is. And that's what this course is all about, is actually reaching inside you and figuring out what your purpose is, and then being able to articulate that in a clear, concise, and compelling way.
Beautiful. So, Ian, if you could create a quote right now, at this very moment, for you to leave to the audience listening and the world as your legacy, what would it be?
Interesting question. You know what? I would piggyback on Picasso's invocation, which is, um, the meaning of life is to find your gift, and your purpose is to share it with the world. So I would just say, you know, figure out your gift and share it with the world, and you will lead a life of greater clarity, greater confidence, and better decision making.
That is a beautiful reminder for me and for my listeners. Thank you. And for whoever that comes across this podcast. So, Ian, where can people reach out to you?
Okay, so it is Purpose U, like Purpose University, purposeu.ai. That's where you go to register for the course. Now, if you get the discount code from your show notes, then when you go to purposeu.ai and you go to sign up, when you get to the payment page, you'll see that there is a insert discount code here. And the thing is, you have to remember to press the apply button. And what you'll do is you'll see the price go from wherever it is to half of that. And and then once you pay, then you're inside and you get a welcome video that explains what you go through. We really do roll out the red carpet and hold your hand through it. It took us 2 years to design and test this course. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think it would take 2 years. When I think of all of the teachers, who probably start, in North America, starting in August, they're going to be thinking about creating their lesson plans, and they're doing it for all sorts of courses. I don't know how they do that. I don't know. I only had to do it for one course, and it took 2 years, but it's a pretty
Massive
darn good
respect.
course, if I do say
Oh,
so
yeah.
myself.
Oh, yeah. I feel it too. I think I can I can vouch for that, even though I haven't seen it. But the way you talk about it, I am pretty sold. So thank you, Ian. All right, before we wrap this interview up, any last message for our listeners?
So I'll give you a head start. And this is, when companies hire me to do a blueprint for a company or a charity or a not-for-profit, they say, how do we prepare for this? What do we research? I say, oh, there's only one thing you need to do to prepare, and that is consider this question. If everything that you do is a means to an end, what is the end purpose? Now, for a company, it's a bit of a jarring question because they think, everything they do is their purpose. Procter and Gamble, our purpose is to create all of these consumer products. That's the manifestation of your purpose. Your purpose is something else. So to a person, I would say the same thing. Look around your life. Look at all the things that you do, all the things that you're committed to, all the things that you want to do, and say, if everything you do is a means to an end, what is the end purpose? I heard a great metaphor in a book that I had to read in university. And the guy talked about this is the stone from which all the shadows are cast. And by asking the question, if everything you do is a means to an end, what's the end purpose? The end is the stone, and everything you do is a shadow cast from that stone. So we're working back from the shadows, trying to define what the stone is, what your purpose is.
Oh,
We're working from what we know back to what we don't know.
the
So
source, the
back
origin.
to the source.
Ah,
The source.
I love that.
When
Oh my God, I had chills.
I don't know if you've ever heard of the Toronto International Film Festival. It's the second biggest film
Yes,
festival in the world
yes.
to Cannes.
After
Okay,
Ken.
so TIFF. Yeah, TIFF. When we did TIFF's blueprint, the COO said, we've gone through many strategic exercises before, but you guys took us about 6 layers deeper. And I was very flattered by that comment because my frustration is that so much of business thinking is so superficial that it doesn't lead to material results, that you have to take the time to think. I had the CEO of a huge corporation say that. He said, you know what? I think the thing that I loved about the blueprint more, and pardon my language here, is he said, is that's just that you nailed our asses to the chair and made us think about our business in a way that we've never thought about it before. And again, I loved that statement, right? Because that's, you
Yes,
have to go that deep. You have to
you
think.
have to. And that is a wrap on today's inspiring episode with Ian Chamandy. A huge thank you to you, Ian, for your work, for the world, and the people around you. Now, for our listeners, this has been Your Worthless. Read that again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. If you've ever felt worthless, remember you are not alone. Your soul chose to be here, to matter. And for that reason alone, you are worthy. A huge thank you to you, Ian, and to all of you for listening. Until next time, I am Nick Nieras. Keep shining, keep growing, and always remember you are worthy and you are enough. See you in the next episode. Thank you, Ian, for your time. Bye bye.
Love this episode? Now, transformation doesn't end here. Head on to at holistic.lifestyle_with Nick. That is on my Instagram. Or head on to my website, www.denigneraswholisticlifestyle.com for more info on my coaching framework, which is the Worthy, Authentic, and Abundant Framework, digital guides, and my upcoming events such as retreats and master classes and workshops. Now, I also do intuitive readings where we get to check on your soul path. And if you're also wanting to check on your energetic alignment, I have done that too. And I offer that kind of services. So, my question to you is, are you ready? Because I am. Let's create your lives.
Good morning, Ian. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Nick. Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'd like to say thank you to you, Ian, for making this happen. This is our, I think, third reschedule, but here we are. I'd like to introduce myself to you formally and to all of our listeners tuning in for the first time and or returning subscribers. My name is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled You're Worthless. Full stop. Read that again. Full stop. The juxtaposition of your very soul. Now, today we're going to talk about purpose. Now, how apt it is to be for my podcast to be named You're Worthless. Oftentimes we feel that we're worthless because we have no direction in life. At least that's what I felt before. Without further ado, and I'd like to introduce you to all of our listeners first, and then we can get right into our conversation.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. We have Ian Chamandy here with us. Over the last 20 years, Ian has helped more than 400 organizations define their purpose and become consistently uniquely remarkable through his proprietary blueprint process. Blueprinting defines an organization's purpose in 7 words or less and uses it to design how it will operate and communicate. Now, Ian has adapted this process for individuals so they too can create a personal blueprint for a happy, productive, self directed, and purpose driven life. Welcome to the show, Ian.